The great throne room of the Cretan Empire stretched out like a metal canyon. Emperor Vorthak sat on his crystal throne, his 4 eyes glowing red with anger. Around him, holographic displays showed star maps covering 40,000 worlds. All of them belonged to him. "Tell me again," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "These humans. What did they do?" Fleet Admiral Zephyros stepped forward. His blue skin was darker than usual, a sign of stress among his people. "Your Majesty, they ignored our demands. 3 times we told them to surrender their worlds and pay tribute. 3 times they sent back messages that made no sense." "What kind of messages?" "They sent us pictures of small Earth animals making funny faces. They called them memes. Our translation computers could not understand their meaning." Emperor Vorthak's anger grew. For 3,000 years, his empire had grown by conquering other species. Some fought bravely, some begged for mercy, some tried to bargain, but none had ever sent pictures of cute animals. "Show me these human ships," the Emperor commanded. The air above them filled with images of human spacecraft. The ships looked like metal boxes with engines stuck on the back. They had no beautiful curves like proper Imperial vessels. They looked like something a child might build from scrap metal. "These are warships?" Emperor Vorthak asked. "Yes, Your Majesty. Our scouts say they have simple weapons and weak shields. Their technology seems very basic. They only developed space travel 50 years ago." The Emperor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 50 years? My empire has ruled space for 3 millennia. Send them one final message. They have 72 hours to surrender, or we will destroy every human world. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Jiho Kim stood in the United Nations Defense Command Center. The room buzzed with activity as officers moved between computer stations. Large screens showed the positions of human ships throughout their small territory in space. Jiho was a calm man with graying hair and kind eyes. He had spent his whole life in the military, but he had never enjoyed war. He preferred solving problems with his brain instead of weapons. "Admiral," called Captain Unipark from her station. She was young and energetic, with short black hair and a smile that never seemed to fade. "We're getting another message from the Cretan Empire." "Put it on the main screen," Jiho said. The image that appeared showed Emperor Vorthak in all his terrifying glory. His 4 red eyes stared out from the screen like burning coals. His voice was deep and threatening. "Primitive humans," the Emperor began. "You have insulted the great Cretan Empire for the last time. You will surrender all your worlds within 72 hours. You will become slaves of the Empire. You will pay tribute of half your resources every year. If you refuse, we will send our grand fleet to destroy every human settlement in the galaxy. Your species will be wiped from existence." The message ended with a close-up of Emperor Vorthak's snarling face. The command center fell silent. Everyone stared at the now dark screen. The alien emperor's threats hung in the air like a heavy weight. Then Admiral Jiho began to chuckle. Captain Yuna looked at him with surprise, then started giggling herself. Commander Tai-Ho Lee, a serious man who rarely smiled, felt his lips twitching upward. Dr. Somin Choi, the fleet's chief scientist, covered her mouth to hide her grin, but her eyes were dancing with mirth. Within moments, the entire command center was filled with laughter. Officers laughed at their stations. Technicians laughed while checking their instruments. Even the usually stone-faced security guards were grinning. The alien ambassador who had delivered the message stood in the corner of the room, completely confused. He was a small gray creature with large black eyes. His name was Crix, and he was supposed to be a neutral messenger between species. "I do not understand," Crix said in his high, squeaky voice. "Emperor Vorthak has just threatened to destroy your entire species. In 3,000 years of delivering such messages, no species has ever responded with laughter. They usually beg for mercy or declare war or try to negotiate. But laughter? This is unprecedented." Admiral Jiho wiped tears from his eyes and tried to compose himself. "I'm sorry, Crix, we don't mean to be rude. It's just that—" He started laughing again. Captain Yuna managed to speak through her giggles. "It's like a mouse threatening to eat an elephant." No, said Commander Tai-Ho, shaking his head while smiling. "It's more like someone threatening to hurt us by giving us exactly what we want." Dr. Somin stepped forward, her scientific mind taking over despite her amusement. "Crix, may I ask you something? In all the species the Cretan Empire has conquered, how did they win their battles?" The little alien tilted his head. "The same way all space wars are fought. They use superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm their enemies. The Empire has the largest fleet in the galaxy and the most advanced weapons. And what happens to the energy from those weapons when they hit enemy ships? It destroys them? Exactly, Dr. Sumin said, her smile growing wider. The energy is used for destruction. But what if there was a species that could do something else with that energy? Crix's large eyes grew even larger. What do you mean? Admiral Jiho put a gentle hand on the alien's shoulder. Crix, would you like to see something interesting? Computer, show our guest the technical specifications of our newest ships. The main screen filled with detailed blueprints of human vessels. To most observers, they looked like simple designs with basic components. But Dr. Sumin pointed to specific sections. These aren't just engines, Crix, they're energy converters. These aren't just cargo holds, they're molecular foundries. And these aren't just waste disposal systems, they're matter reorganizers. The alien ambassador stared at the blueprints, then looked back at the laughing humans. I still do not understand why you find the Emperor's threat amusing. Captain Yuna walked over to a window that showed the Earth spinning slowly below them. Crix, when we humans first went into space, we learned something important. Space isn't empty. It's full of energy, radiation, particles, magnetic fields, gravity waves, and all sorts of useful things. Most species see these as obstacles to overcome. We saw them as resources to collect. Commander Taiho joined them at the window. Every other species builds ships to protect themselves from space. We build ships that eat space and turn it into whatever we need. Admiral Jiho looked out at the stars thoughtfully. So when Emperor Vorthak threatens to attack us with massive energy weapons, he's basically offering to feed our ships a very large meal. The laughter in the command center started up again, but this time it was gentler, more like parents watching a child do something adorable. Crix looked from one human to another, pieces of understanding beginning to form in his alien mind. Are you saying that the Emperor's threats will actually make you stronger? Not just stronger, Dr. Soman said with a grin. Much, much stronger. The bigger his fleet, the more energy we can harvest. The more powerful his weapons, the more raw materials we can process. Admiral Jiho turned to the alien ambassador with kindness in his eyes. Crix, would you please take a message back to Emperor Vorthak? Of course, Admiral. What should I tell him? Jiho's smile was warm but somehow sad. Tell him that humanity declines his generous offer to surrender. And tell him that when his fleet arrives, we'll try to be gentle. We wouldn't want to accidentally hurt anyone while they're feeding our ships. The command center erupted in laughter once more as Crix hurried away to deliver this impossible message to the most feared emperor in the galaxy. The news of humanity's strange response spread through the Creathian Empire like wildfire. On the capital world of Krithos Prime, military commanders gathered in the war planning chamber. The room was filled with holographic displays showing troop movements, ship positions, and supply lines stretching across the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Zephyro stood before the largest display, watching red dots that represented Imperial warships moving toward human space. 50,000 ships, the largest fleet in Imperial history. It was enough firepower to crack planets and turn entire star systems into glowing debris. Status report, he commanded. General Vex, a scarred veteran of 100 campaigns, stepped forward. Admiral, all battle groups are mobilizing. The 3rd Fleet will arrive at the human territory in 6 days. The 5th and 7th Fleets will follow within hours. Our scouts report that human forces are minimal. How minimal? Approximately 200 ships, sir. All of them appear to be the same crude design we observed before. No new construction detected. No emergency mobilization. No evacuation of civilian populations. Fleet Admiral Zephyros frowned. In his 300 years of military service, he had never seen an enemy remain so calm before total annihilation. What are their ships doing? Following normal patrol patterns, sir. Some are docked at space stations for routine maintenance. Others appear to be conducting scientific experiments. One group is playing some sort of game with colored lights between their ships. The Admiral's frown deepened. Games? They're playing games while facing extinction? Yes, sir. Our long-range scanners also detect what appears to be a party on their largest space station. There are decorative lights and what our computers identify as festive music. Meanwhile, in human space, Captain Woo-Sung Han floated in the rec room of his ship, the defense vessel Resilience. He was indeed playing cards with his crew, just as the Imperial spies had reported. The game was poker, and Woo-Sung was losing badly. I fold, he said. tossing his cards onto the table that was magnetically secured to the floor. Minho, how do you always know when I'm bluffing? Sergeant Minho Park grinned as he collected the chips. Captain, you get this little twitch in your left eye every time you have a bad hand. Also, you start humming. I do not hum. You're humming right now, sir. Wusung stopped mid-hum and laughed. Well, that explains why I never win at cards. He looked out the window at the stars. Speaking of games, has anyone heard from Dr. Soman lately? I heard she's working on some kind of special project. In her laboratory on the research station New Seoul, Dr. Soman Choi was indeed working on something special, but it wasn't what the Imperial spies expected. She was surrounded by displays showing molecular diagrams and energy conversion equations. Her workspace looked like a mad scientist's dream, with half-built devices and glowing components scattered everywhere. Her assistant, Dr. Hyun Chang, watched as she connected two devices that looked like they shouldn't go together. Professor, are you sure this is going to work? It looks like you're trying to hook a microwave to a nuclear reactor. Salman laughed. Hyun, that's actually not a bad comparison. But instead of cooking food, we're going to cook space itself. She gestured to a large cylindrical device in the center of the room. This is my newest invention. I call it a universal matter converter. What does it do? It takes any form of energy or matter and turns it into any other form of energy or matter. Watch this. She picked up a metal spoon and dropped it into one end of the device. The machine hummed for a moment, and then a perfect apple rolled out the other end. Dr. Hyun's jaw dropped. You just turned a spoon into an apple. The basic elements are the same. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen with a few trace metals. I just rearranged them at the atomic level. Salman took a bite of the apple. Tastes like spoon. I mean apple. But why are you installing these on our ships? Are we planning to feed the Imperial fleet fresh fruit? Salman's grin was mysterious. Something like that. Back on Earth, Admiral Jiho Kim walked through the Defense Command Center checking on preparations. But his preparations were not what any military commander in the galaxy would have expected. Instead of weapons tests and battle drills, he was reviewing supply manifests and energy distribution charts. Captain Yuna Park approached him with a tablet full of reports. Admiral, the fleet commanders are asking if they should move to defensive positions around Earth. No need, Jiho replied calmly. Tell them to maintain standard patrol routes. Actually, have them do some sightseeing while they're out there. I hear the rings of Saturn are beautiful this time of year. Sightseeing, sir? Why not? When else will we have 50,000 alien ships coming to visit? It's going to be quite a show. Yuna shook her head in amazement. Even after serving under Admiral Jiho for 5 years, his calm confidence still surprised her. Sir, don't you think we should at least look like we're taking this seriously? The crew is starting to think this is all some kind of elaborate joke. Jiho stopped walking and turned to face her. His expression was serious but kind. Yuna, I want you to understand something. This is not a joke. The Krathian Empire really does intend to destroy us. Their weapons really are powerful enough to crack planets. Their fleet really is the largest ever assembled. Then why aren't we preparing for battle? We are preparing, just not in the way they expect. He gestured toward a display showing human ships scattered throughout their territory. Every one of our vessels is exactly where it needs to be. Every system is operating at peak efficiency. Every crew member knows their job. But what is our job exactly? The tactical manuals don't have any strategies for fighting a fleet 50 times larger than ours. Admiral Jiho smiled. That's because our strategy isn't in any manual. It's something completely new. On the Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion, Emperor Vorthak himself had arrived to oversee the final destruction of humanity. The massive ship was the size of a small moon, equipped with weapons that could sterilize entire worlds. Its command center was a cathedral of military might, with hundreds of officers monitoring every aspect of the approaching fleet. Time to target? The Emperor asked. 18 hours, Your Majesty, replied Fleet Admiral Zephyros. All ships report ready for battle. Our weapons are charged, our shields are at maximum power. And the humans? Still behaving strangely, sire. Our latest reports indicate that many of their ships are singing. Singing? Yes, Your Majesty. They appear to be broadcasting musical performances across their communication channels. Our translators identify the songs as folk music and drinking songs. Emperor Vorthak's 4 eyes burned brighter. They mock us. They think their primitive vessels can stand against the might of the Empire. Tomorrow, we will show them the price of such arrogance. Unknown to the Emperor, his conversation was being monitored by human intelligence. On Earth, Dr. Soman listened to the intercepted transmission while making final adjustments to her equipment. "Dr. Soman," came Admiral Jiho's voice over the intercom. "Are your modifications ready?" "Just finished the last installation, Admiral. Every human ship now has a universal matter converter integrated into its core systems. We're ready to turn their firepower into, well, anything we want." "Excellent. And the crew briefings?" "All completed. Everyone knows the plan. Though I have to say, some of them are still having trouble believing it will work. That's understandable. It does sound impossible." Dr. Somin looked out her laboratory window at the approaching Imperial fleet. Even from a great distance, the enemy ships looked like a swarm of angry stars. "Admiral, are you sure we shouldn't at least pretend to be worried? Just for appearances?" Admiral Jiho's laugh came through the speakers. "Somin, worry is a waste of energy. And tomorrow we're going to need all the energy we can get." Throughout human space, similar conversations were taking place. Crews that should have been terrified were instead excited. Soldiers who should have been writing final letters home were instead planning post-battle celebrations. Commander Tai-Ho Lee stood on the bridge of his ship. The determination, watching his crew perform their duties with unusual enthusiasm. His communications officer, Lieutenant Gina Kang, turned to him with a bright smile. "Commander, we're receiving the final countdown from Fleet Command. The Imperial fleet will be in weapons range in 6 hours." "Acknowledge the message," Tai-Ho replied, "and remind the crew to get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day." "Sir, should we send any final messages to our families?" Tai-Ho considered this. "Yes, but not the kind you're thinking. Tell them to watch the news tomorrow. They're going to see something that no one in the galaxy has ever seen before." As the two fleets moved toward their historic encounter, the difference in mood could not have been more stark. The Imperial forces approached with grim determination, ready to deliver death and destruction. The human forces approached with curiosity and excitement, ready to demonstrate something entirely new. And in her laboratory, Dr. Soman Choi made one final check of her calculations. Mathematics had always been beautiful to her, but the equations she was looking at now were poetry. They described a way of turning destruction into creation, of making war feed peace. "Tomorrow," she whispered to herself, "we're going to teach the galaxy that there's more than one way to win a fight." The countdown. The Imperial fleet arrived at the edge of human space in perfect formation. 50,000 ships arranged in geometric patterns that stretched across millions of kilometers. From a distance, they looked like a deadly constellation moving through the darkness. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Emperor Vorthak stood before the main viewing screen, his 4 red eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The human fleet was visible ahead, 200 small ships that looked like toys compared to the Imperial Armada. Fleet Admiral Zephyros, the Emperor commanded, "Open a communication channel to the human fleet. Channel open, Your Majesty." Emperor Vorthak's voice boomed across space, reaching every human ship. "Primitive humans, you have one final chance to surrender before we demonstrate the true power of the Crethean Empire. Bow before your Emperor, and your deaths will be swift." The response came from Admiral Jiho Kim, his calm voice somehow carrying more authority than the Emperor's threats. "Emperor Vorthak, thank you for bringing your fleet so far to visit us. We decline your offer to surrender, but we have a counter-proposal. How about you surrender instead? We promise to be gentle with you." The sound that followed was unlike anything heard in Imperial military communications for 3,000 years. It was laughter, not from one voice, but from hundreds. Every human ship was broadcasting sounds of joy and amusement. Captain Una Park's voice came through the speakers, barely controlled through her giggles. "Admiral Jiho, are they always this dramatic? I mean, the glowing red eyes and the deep voice are a bit much, don't you think?" "I think he's compensating for something," came Commander Tai-Ho Lee's dry response, causing fresh waves of laughter from the human fleet. Emperor Vorthak's rage was visible even from space. His flagship pulsed with angry red light. "Silence. You dare mock the Emperor of the Galaxy? Destroy them all." Fleet Admiral Zephyros gave the command that had ended 1,000 civilizations. "All ships open fire." The space between the two fleets lit up like a festival of destruction. Plasma cannons unleashed streams of superheated gas. Quantum torpedoes tore holes in reality itself. Energy beams that could melt asteroids lanced through the darkness. It was the most concentrated firepower ever unleashed in galactic history. The human ships vanished in a sea of explosive light. For a moment, the Imperial fleet held its fire, certain that the battle was over. Sensors swept the area where the human vessels had been, looking for debris and energy signatures. Victory had never been so swift or complete. Then the laughter started again. Through the fading explosions and dissipating energy, the human ships emerged. Their hulls glowed bright red from absorbed heat, but they were intact, more than intact. They looked somehow healthier, like plants after a good rain. Captain Unipark's delighted voice crackled over the communications. "Whew, that was amazing!" Did everyone feel that? It was like getting a full-body massage with a side of energy drink. Her ship, the Defiance, spun gracefully through space, its hull still glowing but showing no damage. If anything, it looked slightly larger than before. Commander Taeho Lee's more measured voice followed. "Confirmed positive effects across all systems. Hull integrity at 120% of baseline, power levels at 150%. Food replicators are producing some kind of chocolate cake." "Chocolate cake?" came Captain Woo-Sung Han's surprised voice from the Resilience. "Lucky. My replicators are making kimchi, but it's the best kimchi I've ever tasted. Hey, can someone ask the Imperial fleet to shoot us again?" "This is incredible!" On the Imperial flagship, chaos reigned. Officers stared at their instruments in disbelief. Sensor operators ran diagnostic after diagnostic, certain their equipment was malfunctioning. "Fleet Admiral," reported the chief science officer, his voice shaking, "our weapons definitely hit their targets. Energy absorption readings confirm direct impacts with full power." "Then where are their debris fields?" Zephyros demanded. "Sir, there are no debris fields. The human ships absorbed our attacks completely. Our energy weapons appear to have fed them." Emperor Vorthak pushed the science officer aside and stared at the sensor readings himself. The data made no sense. The human ships were not only undamaged, they were improved. Hull density had increased. Power output was higher. Some vessels showed signs of spontaneous system upgrades. "This is impossible," the Emperor growled. "Fire again! All weapons, maximum power!" The Imperial fleet unleashed another devastating barrage. This time they focused all their firepower on individual human ships, concentrating enough energy to vaporize small moons. The space around the human fleet became a miniature sun of destructive force. Again, the human ships absorbed every blast. Dr. Soman Choi's excited voice broadcast to both fleets. "Oh, this is wonderful. Our universal matter converters are working even better than I calculated. The energy input is being processed into structural improvements, fuel reserves, ammunition, food, spare parts, and... Wait, what's this new reading?" A brief pause, then her voice returned with barely contained glee. "My ship just grew a hot tub, a fully functional hot tub with temperature control and bubble jets. This is the best day ever." The Imperial fleet had stopped firing, not from choice, but from sheer bewilderment. Every military manual in the Empire was based on the principle that sufficient firepower could destroy anything. But the humans were treating their most powerful weapons like gifts from generous friends. Captain Unipark addressed the Imperial fleet directly. "Attention, Emperor Vorthak and friends. We really appreciate all the free energy and materials, but you might want to know that our weapons work differently from yours. While your ships get weaker when damaged, our ships get stronger when fed, and you've just fed us a very large meal." To demonstrate, she fired her ship's main railgun at a nearby asteroid. The projectile wasn't just a chunk of metal. It was a precisely engineered round that had been crafted from the absorbed Imperial attacks. When it hit the asteroid, the rock didn't just break apart. It dissolved into component elements that were immediately collected by the Defiance's mining beams. "You see," Captain Yuna continued conversationally, "humans learned something interesting when we went into space. The universe isn't trying to kill us. It's trying to feed us. There's energy everywhere. Radiation, magnetic fields, gravity waves, solar winds, cosmic rays. Most species build ships to hide from all that free energy. We build ships to eat it." Commander Taeho's voice joined the explanation. "Every shot you fire at us gets broken down into basic elements and energy, then rebuilt into whatever we need most. Right now, my ship is using your quantum torpedo attack to manufacture spare parts and improve my shield generators." The horrifying realization began to dawn on the Imperial commanders. They weren't fighting an enemy, they were feeding one. Every attack made the humans stronger. Every weapon fired gave them more resources. Emperor Vorthak's rage had transformed into something colder and more dangerous. All ships prepare boarding craft. If we cannot destroy them with energy weapons, we will take their ships by force. Thousands of small attack craft launched from the Imperial fleet, carrying elite troops armed with the finest weapons the Empire could produce. They swarmed toward the human vessels like angry insects. Admiral Jiho's voice came across all channels, and for the first time there was something other than amusement in his tone. There was sadness. "Emperor Vorthak, please recall your troops. We don't want to hurt anyone. You will surrender or die," the Emperor screamed back. "We tried to warn you," Admiral Jiho said quietly. "We laughed because we knew this would happen. We're not laughing now because we don't want to harm your people. But if you force us to defend ourselves..." Captain Unipark's ship moved to intercept the boarding craft. But instead of firing weapons, the Defiant simply opened its cargo bay doors. A gentle tractor beam pulled the small Imperial ships inside, where they were safely contained but completely unable to escape or cause damage. "Sorry about this," Captain Yuna broadcast to the confused Imperial troops. "But you're going to have to stay here until your Emperor learns some manners. Don't worry, we have excellent hospitality. My ship's replicators are making fresh cookies right now." Similar scenes played out across the human fleet. Imperial boarding craft were captured with embarrassing ease, their crews finding themselves prisoners on ships that treated them like honored guests rather than dangerous enemies. The most disturbing part for the Imperial forces was that the humans seemed genuinely sorry about the conflict. There was no hatred in their voices, no desire for revenge. They fought like people defending their homes from confused neighbors rather than mortal enemies. Dr. Soman Choi broadcast one final message to the Imperial fleet. "Emperor Vorthak, your scientists are probably trying to figure out how our ships work. I'll save them some time. We don't fight the universe, we dance with it. Every force that tries to hurt us becomes a force that helps us. Every attack that should destroy us makes us stronger." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "You cannot defeat us with violence because violence is just another form of energy, and we collect all forms of energy. The harder you fight us, the more powerful we become." The Imperial fleet found itself in an impossible situation. They had come to destroy humanity, and found themselves. The Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion had become a fortress of confusion and fear. In the main command center, hundreds of officers stared at displays that showed impossible readings. Their greatest fleet was not just failing to destroy the humans, it was actively making them stronger. Emperor Vorthak stood frozen before the tactical display, his 4 red eyes wide with disbelief. Around him, his most trusted advisors whispered among themselves, trying to make sense of what they were witnessing. Fleet Admiral Zephyros. The Emperor's voice was quieter now, less commanding and more uncertain. "Explain to me how 200 primitive ships are defeating 50,000 Imperial vessels." Fleet Admiral Zephyros looked older than his 400 years. His blue skin had gone pale, and his hands shook as he manipulated the holographic controls. "Your Majesty, our science teams have been analyzing the human vessels for the past hour. What they've discovered challenges everything we know about space warfare. Show me." The main display zoomed in on a human ship called the Resilience. Captain Wusung Han's vessel looked completely different from when the battle began. Where once it had been a simple metal box, now it appeared more like a living organism. Its hull rippled with energy patterns, and new structures had grown from its surface like technological flowers. "The human ships are not just vessels, sire. They are factories, foundries, and processing plants all combined into one. Every energy blast we fire at them is immediately broken down at the molecular level and rebuilt into useful materials." Dr. Vorthan, the Empire's chief scientist, stepped forward with a data tablet in his trembling hands. "Your Majesty, I've never seen technology like this. Their ships don't just absorb energy, they transform it. A plasma blast that should melt their hull becomes new armor plating. A quantum torpedo becomes fuel for their engines. Even the radiation from our weapon systems becomes food for their crew." Emperor Vorthak stared at the readings, his mind struggling to process this information. "You're telling me that our attacks are feeding them?" "Not just feeding them, sire, evolving them. Each ship is becoming more advanced with every attack. The vessel called Defiance has grown 3 new weapon systems since the battle began, all constructed from the energy of our own weapons. On the human ship Harmony, Dr. Somin Choi was indeed monitoring these changes with scientific fascination. Her laboratory had expanded significantly during the battle, with new equipment growing from the walls like technological coral. She spoke into her communication device, broadcasting to both the human fleet and the listening Imperial forces. "This is Dr. Somin Choi of the human research vessel, Harmony. I believe it's time to explain what you're witnessing. Emperor Vorthak, your scientists are correct. Your attacks are feeding our ships, but they don't understand why this is possible." Her voice carried the excitement of a teacher sharing a wonderful discovery with curious students. When humans first ventured into space 50 years ago, we made an important observation. Most species see space as empty, hostile, and dangerous. They build ships to protect themselves from radiation, gravity, magnetic fields, and cosmic forces. They see the universe as an enemy to be fought. She paused to check a readout that showed her ship had just finished converting an Imperial particle beam into a new batch of medical supplies, but humans learned something different. We realized that space isn't empty. It's full of energy in countless forms. We didn't see these forces as threats to avoid. We saw them as resources to collect. Instead of building shields to block cosmic radiation, we built collectors to harvest it. Instead of fighting gravity wells, we learned to surf them. Captain Una Park's voice joined the explanation, her tone bright with enthusiasm. Dr. Somin taught us that the universe isn't trying to kill us, it's trying to help us. There's free energy everywhere. Solar radiation, magnetic fields, gravity waves, even the motion of planets and stars. Most species waste huge amounts of energy fighting these forces. We learned to dance with them instead. Commander Taiho Lee added his more practical perspective. Our universal matter converters can take any form of energy or matter and transform it into any other form. Your plasma cannons fire superheated gas at us and we turn it into hull plating and crew quarters. Your quantum torpedoes bend space-time, and we use that distortion to generate power for our engines. The revelation was spreading through the Imperial fleet like wildfire. Ship captains who had spent centuries believing in the supremacy of firepower were discovering that their greatest weapons were useless against an enemy that could eat them. On the bridge of the Imperial cruiser Dominator, Captain Keck stared at his weapons officer with growing despair. "You're telling me that every shot we fire makes them stronger?" "Yes, Captain. Our tactical computers estimate that the human fleet is now approximately 3 times more powerful than when the battle began. And they're still growing." Captain Keck slumped in his command chair. "Then how do we fight them?" It was a question being asked on every Imperial ship, and the answer was becoming terrifyingly clear. They couldn't fight them. Not with weapons, not with tactics, not with superior numbers. The humans had discovered something that made traditional warfare obsolete. Dr. Somin's broadcast continued, her voice carrying across the entire battlefield. "I want to show you something, Emperor Vorthak. Watch my ship carefully." The Harmony moved closer to a cluster of Imperial vessels, passing directly through their defensive formations. The Imperial ships fired at it instinctively, their weapons creating a brilliant light show as energy beams and missiles converged on the human vessel. But instead of taking damage, the Harmony began to glow with absorbed energy. New sections of hull grew before the amazed eyes of the Imperial crews. Weapon ports opened and closed like breathing. The ship's size increased by nearly 20% in just a few minutes. "You see," Dr. Somin explained, "your attacks don't damage us, they improve us. Every shot makes us faster, stronger, better armed, and more advanced. The more you fight us, the more we evolve beyond your ability to harm us." Captain Woo-Sung Han's voice joined the demonstration. "My ship just used your last missile barrage to build a greenhouse. I'm growing fresh vegetables using the energy from your weapons. Would you like some tomatoes? They're delicious." The psychological impact on the Imperial forces was devastating. These were warriors who had conquered the galaxy through superior firepower and ruthless efficiency. They had never faced an enemy that treated their most powerful weapons as gifts, but the humans weren't finished with their demonstration. Admiral Jiho Kim's calm voice addressed Emperor Vorthak directly. "Your Majesty, I want to show you the most important thing about human technology. It's not just that we can absorb your attacks. Watch what happens when we work together." The 200 human ships began moving into a new formation, their hulls still glowing with absorbed Imperial energy. They arranged themselves in a perfect sphere, with each ship pointing toward the center. "Now," Admiral Jiho announced, All 200 ships fired simultaneously, not at the Imperial fleet, but at each other. Their weapons created a brilliant web of energy beams that intersected in the center of their formation. But instead of destroying each other, something miraculous happened. The energy beams merged and combined, creating a swirling vortex of pure power. Within seconds, the vortex began to take shape, forming itself into something solid. Within minutes, a new ship had been born from the combined attacks of the human fleet. It was larger and more advanced than any vessel in either fleet, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that resembled a heartbeat, and its very presence seemed to make the surrounding space more peaceful. "We call this collaborative creation," Dr. Soman explained, her voice filled with wonder, even though she had seen this process many times before. "When humans work together, we can build things that none of us could create alone. Your attacks gave us the raw materials and energy. Our cooperation gave us the ability to transform that energy into something beautiful." The new ship began broadcasting its own message, its voice a harmonious blend of all the human crew members who had contributed to its creation. "Greetings, Crethean Empire. We are the Unity, born from the gifts you have given us. We exist to show you that creation is always more powerful than destruction." Emperor Vorthak stared at this impossible vessel, his mind reeling. In the space of a few hours, he had watched his unstoppable fleet become completely ineffective against an enemy that grew stronger with every attack. Now he was witnessing the birth of ships from pure energy and cooperation. "This is not war," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "This is something else entirely." Fleet Admiral Zephyros nodded grimly. "Sire, we're not fighting a military force. We're facing a completely different way of existing. They don't just have better technology. They have a better understanding of how the universe works." Dr. Soman's final broadcast of the day carried a note of gentle sadness. "Emperor Vorthak, do you understand now why we laughed when you threatened us? You promised to destroy us with the very forces that make us stronger. It would be like threatening to hurt plants by shining sunlight on them." She paused, looking out at the magnificent Imperial fleet that had traveled so far to destroy her people. The silence that followed Admiral Jiho's offer stretched across space like a held breath. 50,000 Imperial ships hung motionless, their crews waiting for their Emperor's response. The human fleet waited too, their ships gently glowing with absorbed energy, patient as teachers watching students work through a difficult problem. Emperor Vorthak stood alone in the command center of his flagship, staring at the impossible scene before him. The new ship called Unity hung in space like a silver dream, its hull pulsing with soft light. It had been created from his own weapons, built from his own attacks, born from his failed attempt at destruction. For 3,000 years, his empire had grown through conquest. Every species they encountered either surrendered or was destroyed. It was the natural order of the galaxy. The strong ruled the weak, the advanced conquered the primitive, the many crushed the few. But the humans had broken that order completely. Fleet Admiral Zephyros. The Emperor's voice was quieter than anyone had ever heard it. "In your professional opinion, can we defeat them?" The old military commander looked at his sensor readings one final time. The human fleet had grown by 50% during the battle. Their weapons were now more advanced than Imperial technology. Their ships were faster, stronger, and more efficient than anything in the Empire's arsenal. "No, Your Majesty. We cannot defeat them with force. Every attack we make only improves their capabilities. If we continue fighting, we will eventually be facing an enemy that surpasses us in every possible way. And if we withdraw, they will let us go. But nothing will have changed. They will continue to grow and expand, and eventually every species in the galaxy will learn their techniques. The Empire as we know it will become obsolete." Emperor Vorthak closed his 4 eyes and made a decision that would echo across galactic history. "Open a communication channel to the human admiral." "Channel open, sire." "Admiral Jiho Kim of Earth." The Emperor's voice carried no more threats or rage, only curiosity. "You offer to teach us your methods. What do you want in return?" Admiral Jiho's response came immediately, his tone warm and welcoming. "Nothing at all, Emperor Vorthak. Knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. The more species that learn to work with the universe instead of against it, the richer and more beautiful the galaxy becomes. You want nothing? No tribute? No territory? No submission? We want friends, not subjects. We want partners, not slaves. We want to explore the galaxy together and discover all the wonderful things it has to offer. Captain Unipark's enthusiastic voice joined the conversation. Emperor Vorthak, wait until you see what happens when different species share their knowledge. The Altarians taught us about quantum harmonics, and we taught them about molecular conversion. Together we created ships that can sing while they fly. Ships that sing? The Emperor's confusion was evident. It's wonderful, came Captain Wusung Han's delighted response. Music helps regulate the energy flow in the universal matter converters. My ship sounds like a choir of angels when it's processing solar radiation. Dr. Soman Choi added her scientific perspective. Emperor Vorthak, your species has advanced technology that we'd love to learn about. Your gravity manipulation systems are much more elegant than ours. Your energy shields use principles we haven't discovered yet. If we combine your knowledge with our techniques, we could create things that neither of us could imagine alone. The Emperor found himself in completely unfamiliar territory. He had expected threats, demands, conditions for surrender. Instead, the humans were offering genuine collaboration and expressing admiration for Imperial technology. You would share your secrets freely? Knowledge wants to be free, Admiral Jiho replied. When you try to hoard information, it becomes stagnant and useless. When you share it, it grows and improves and creates new possibilities. Commander Taiho Lee joined the discussion with his practical viewpoint. Emperor Vorthak, we've been monitoring your fleet's energy signatures. Your ships are incredibly inefficient. They waste about 90% of their power fighting against natural forces instead of using them. If we taught your engineers our conversion techniques, your ships could travel 10 times farther on the same fuel. And your weapons, added Captain Yuna with genuine excitement. They're so powerful. But you're using them to destroy things when you could use them to build things. Imagine what we could create if we combined your plasma cannons with our matter converters. The conversation continued for hours, with human officers eagerly sharing technical details and asking questions about Imperial systems. The Emperor listened in growing amazement as his most dangerous enemies discussed his technology, with the enthusiasm of students meeting favorite teachers. Dr. Vorthan, the Empire's chief scientist, had been monitoring the conversation from his laboratory. Finally, he approached the Emperor with obvious excitement. Your Majesty, if even half of what they're describing is possible, it would revolutionize our entire civilization. We could eliminate energy shortages, food scarcity, even resource conflicts. The applications are limitless. Emperor Vorthak made his second historic decision of the day. Dr. Vorthan, you will accompany me to the human flagship. We will see these miracles for ourselves. An hour later, the Emperor's personal shuttle docked with Admiral Jiho's ship, the Inspiration. What he found aboard defied every expectation he had formed about his enemies. The ship's corridors were filled with plants, not decorative arrangements, but functional gardens that helped process the ship's atmosphere. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing gently with energy patterns that felt somehow soothing. Everything was clean, efficient, and welcoming. Admiral Jiho met them at the airlock, and the Emperor was surprised by his appearance. Instead of a fierce warrior or cold military commander, he saw a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Behind him stood his senior officers, Captain Yuna Park, Commander Taiho Lee, and Dr. Soman Choi. Welcome aboard the Inspiration, Emperor Vorthak, Admiral Jiho said with genuine warmth. We're honored to have you visit us. Dr. Soman stepped forward with barely contained excitement. Your Majesty, would you like to see how the universal matter converters work? I've been dying to show someone who would understand the engineering principles involved. What followed was the most remarkable afternoon of the Emperor's long life. Dr. Soman demonstrated how her machines could transform any form of matter or energy into any other form. Captain Yuna showed him how their navigation systems surfed gravity waves instead of fighting them. Commander Taiho explained their weapon systems that were designed to capture and redirect energy rather than simply destroy targets. But most amazing of all was the ship's central core, where the unity had been born. The chamber was filled with swirling energy patterns that looked like frozen music, and the Emperor could feel the harmony of the ship's systems working together. This is why we laughed, Admiral Jiho explained gently, not to mock you but from joy. When you threatened to destroy us with energy weapons, it was like threatening to hurt a plant by giving it sunlight. We knew that every attack would make us stronger and more capable of showing you something wonderful. Emperor Vorthak stood in the center of the energy chamber, feeling forces that his people had fought against for millennia, flowing around him like a gentle river. For the first time, he understood what the humans meant about dancing with the universe instead of fighting it. How long would it take to retrofit my fleet with these systems?
He asked quietly. Dr. Soman's eyes lit up with delight.
With your existing technology as a foundation? Maybe a few weeks for basic conversions, a few months for full integration. Your engineers are very skilled, they'll pick up the principles quickly. And you would do this freely? Of course, Captain Yuna said with a bright smile. The more ships that can harvest space energy, the cleaner and more efficient travel becomes for everyone. It's better for the whole galaxy. The transformation began immediately. Imperial engineers worked alongside human scientists, learning to see their ships not as fortresses against the universe, but as partners dancing with cosmic forces. The changes were remarkable. Imperial vessels that had consumed enormous amounts of fuel now ran on ambient energy harvested from space itself. But the most profound change was in the people themselves. Imperial soldiers who had spent their lives preparing for war found themselves learning about cooperation, creativity, and the joy of building instead of destroying. Human officers who had expected to fight for their lives discovered the satisfaction of teaching and sharing knowledge. Within 6 months, the news had spread to every corner of the galaxy. The mighty Creathian Empire, conqueror of 40,000 worlds, had not been defeated in battle. Instead, they had been convinced to abandon conquest entirely in favor of something much more rewarding: collaboration. The Emperor himself became one of the most enthusiastic converts to the human approach. His flagship, the Eternal Dominion, was transformed into a mobile research station that traveled the galaxy, sharing knowledge and building partnerships with other species. You know, he told Admiral Jiho during one of their regular conversations, I spent 3,000 years believing that power came from the ability to destroy. Now I understand that real power comes from the ability to create. Admiral Jiho smiled, looking